Let me tell you something no one's saying out loud. India just walked away from America. Yeah, you heard that right. And this isn't just about trade. This is a mic drop moment in world history. Because when a rising superpower stops playing by someone else's rules, that's not rebellion, that's revolution. And no, this isn't about hate or hostility. It's not some overnight decision made in anger. This is the result of decades of quiet disrespect, of deals that benefited one side while the other swallowed the cost. India's done swallowing. Buckle up, we're gonna break this down point by point. And by the end of this, you'll understand this isn't India walking away, this is India standing up. This trade fallout didn't happen overnight. It's been building for decades, quietly, silently. The so-called partnership between India and America was never equal. On paper, it looked balanced. In reality, it was a hierarchy. The US exported iPhones, high-end tech, and defense systems. India exported raw materials, cotton, and low-margin goods. India played the supplier role because it had no choice. Recovering from colonial damage, still stabilizing its economy. But over the last 15 years, things changed. India started rising, GDP, global influence, digital infrastructure, strategic thinking. And as it rose, the imbalance became clear. Every tariff dispute, every WTO negotiation began to feel like economic tug of war. India realized this isn't partnership, it's quiet exploitation dressed in diplomacy. And India finally said, we're done playing that game. Free trade sounds like a beautiful idea. Open markets, equal opportunity, fair competition, and mutual benefit. It's sold as a win-win, a path to globalization where all participants rise together. But for India, this idea was never more than a polished illusion. Because when you look beneath the surface, what you find isn't freedom, it's a framework designed to favor the already powerful. India entered the global trade system under terms set long before it had the leverage to negotiate. Institutions like the World Trade Organization's WTO and global trade agreements were crafted in rooms where Indian voices were barely heard, if at all. These were systems built to maintain the status quo, ensuring the dominance of developed economies while keeping developing nations like India in subordinate roles. Every time India tried to take steps to protect its domestic industries, whether through imposing tariffs on cheap imports, subsidizing its struggling farmers, or placing restrictions to prevent foreign corporations from dominating key sectors, it was met with a tidal wave of opposition, legal threats from multinational corporations, diplomatic pressure from the West, negative portrayals in global media. The message was always the same: India was being protectionist. But here's the double standard that shattered the illusion. When the United States poured billions into subsidizing its agricultural sector, or when it protected its tech industry and defense contractors through legislation, no one called it protectionism. Instead, it was framed as national interest or economic security. India was scolded for doing the very things other nations did without question. This imbalance became more visible as India's economy matured. It wasn't just about numbers, it was about priorities. India wanted to support its farmers, its manufacturers, and its labor force. But every time it made a move towards self-reliance, it was told to stop interfering with the free market, even as others manipulated the same market to their advantage. Over time, this contradiction became impossible to ignore. Free trade, in theory, offered opportunity. In practice, it came with invisible handcuffs. India couldn't make policy decisions for its own people without checking whether they aligned with the global order. Any deviation was met with swift backlash. Sovereignty, the right of a nation to govern itself, was quietly compromised in the name of economic cooperation. And so, India asked the question the global system hoped it would never ask: is free trade really free if it costs us our sovereignty? The answer became clear: no, not anymore. This wasn't a retreat from the global stage, it was a redefinition of engagement. India no longer wanted to participate in a game where the rules were rigged. It sought not isolation, but equality. Not rejection of global trade, but a reshaping of its terms. Because real freedom in trade doesn't mean following someone else's blueprint. It means having the power to protect your own future. And India is finally doing just that. There comes a moment when a country stops asking for a seat at the table and starts building its own. India isn't a developing nation anymore. It's the fifth largest economy in the world, a tech giant, a startup magnet, a rising defense power. Strategic sovereignty means owning your decisions, policies, partnerships, and trade choices. India doesn't want to be stuck in someone else's game, not dependent on one country for oil, semiconductors, or defense tech. Walking away from dependency isn't aggression, it's maturity. And it sends one clear message: India will no longer ask permission to protect its interests. Every strong relationship has a breaking point, and India's came when trade became leverage. Tech sanctions, delayed defense transfers, restrictions on semiconductor and AI access. The US began using access to critical technology as a bargaining chip. Want drone tech? Agree to our geopolitical stance. Want chip manufacturing support? Shift your alliances. This wasn't partnership, it was coercion. And India, with its history of non-alignment and autonomy, drew the red line. It refused to choose sides in global conflicts. It pursued energy deals others disapproved of. And what came next? Quiet retaliation, trade restrictions, delays, pressure. That's when India realized dependency is vulnerability, and India doesn't do vulnerability, not anymore. 5, India's global pivot, new markets, new allies. So what did India do? It didn't panic, it pivoted strategically, powerfully. India started expanding its trade footprint, not shrinking it, strengthening ties with BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, China, South Africa, prioritizing trade in local currencies, bypassing the dollar, signaling regional deals across Southeast Asia, Africa, and Latin America. India isn't isolating, it's diversifying. And guess what? Global giants like Apple, Tesla, and Google are still investing. Data centers are going up, supply chains are moving in. India isn't retreating, it's becoming the hub. India's trade pivot is not a rebellion, it's a rebirth. For decades, India was told how to grow, where to invest, what role to play in global trade, but not anymore. India is rewriting the script, investing in homegrown manufacturing, pushing for digital independence, crafting bilateral deals based on equality, not submission. This isn't defiance, this is direction. India is no longer reacting to global power plays, it's creating them. Here's the truth no one's telling you: India didn't walk away from America because it was weak. It walked away because it was strong enough to finally do so. This wasn't an exit, it was an evolution. India has found its voice, it's setting its own pace, it's choosing itself. And when a nation does that, everything changes. India is no longer a junior partner. It's a sovereign force, economically, diplomatically, strategically. If this opened your eyes to the real game behind global trade, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more no-fluff, deep dive breakdowns on how India is changing the world, one bold move at a time. Drop a comment. Do you think India made the right call? Let's talk about it. Your voice matters here. And remember, this isn't the end of a trade deal. It's the beginning of a new India.